Okay, members, I think we will make a start. Councillor Duncan isn't here yet, but hopefully he will be joining us shortly.
Can I give apologies for Councillor Duncan? He's working.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. So I think we have everybody here now then that we're expecting. And apart from members of the committee, welcome to Councillor Oxley and Councillor Middleton as observers for the meeting. I'd also like to welcome James Farrer, who is joining us this evening from the LEP to talk about the Devo position and the discussion we're going to have this evening. So welcome, James. Okay, moving swiftly on, the emergency evacuation procedure. I think everybody will probably know that, apart from possibly James, although I think you've probably been in this building quite a few times. But the evacuation point is through the door over there and to meet on the lawn should there be a fire alarm. Hopefully there won't be. So apologies for absence. Obviously, we've just heard Councillor Duncan. I don't think there's anybody else.
We have apologies from Councillor Dockwra with Councillor Mackenzie substituting.
Lovely, thank you. That's great. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest that they would like to mention at this point? Councillor Graham? Okay, thank you. Councillor Burr?
Yeah, thank you. It's just the usual North York County Councillor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Same for Councillor Andrews. Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you. So item 4 is the minutes of the meeting held on 16th of June, which are on pages 5 to 10, members. Does anybody have anything to raise in terms of accuracy on the minutes? No? If not, we'll move swiftly on again. So we now have a whole host of minutes. Oh, sorry. Oh yes, sorry. Could we just take that on by general affirmation? Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. We now have a whole host of minutes of the local plan working party and one from the livestock market working party and the recommendations. Well, we'll take the recommendations of the community grants working party separately. Do members have any questions on the working party minutes that are before us? Because if not, we will take the local plan working party meetings on the 14th of April, the 13th of June, the 7th of July and the 4th of August on block. Do you have any questions, comments on those, members? No? Okay, so these are just for noting. That's correct. We don't need to vote on these. So if we can take those by general affirmation, that would be good. Are you happy with that? Okay, great. And then we have at point 7, the minutes of the livestock market working party held on the 6th of July. Again, do members have any questions on those? No? Okay, so can we take those by general affirmation as well? Great, thank you. And finally at item 10, we have the recommendations of the Community Grants Working Party held on the 11th of August, which are on pages 39 to 44. You'll see from them that there were a lot of grants awarded at that meeting, which was very good to see, to be honest. So does anybody have any questions on those, Councillor Burr?
Yeah, it's just an update really. So for the people who actually weren't successful, can they reapply, or was there a reason that some didn't get grants?
Some of them, thank you for the question, Councillor Burr. Some of them were discounted from the process because they hadn't completed the forms correctly or whatever. There are criteria that people need to apply to, but there were also quite a number that are deferred for the next meeting of the Grants Working Party. We're going to only have 2 meetings this time because we have limited funds to to distribute, but there were some that were deferred over to the next meeting because the officers felt we needed more information. So is that a correct summary, do you think, as Chair, Councillor Arnold?
I think that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think can we take those by general affirmation as well? Right, thank you very much. Item 11 is urgent business. Have no urgent business this evening. So we will move on. Now there is a slight change to the agenda. The papers you've got in front of you on the York and North Yorkshire devolution deal, that now is going to be a Part A item, because we're not actually making a decision this evening. The item before us is for information and discussion, and a fuller report will come to full council on the 15th of September. So so it is, unfortunately, it's listed as a Part B, but it should be a Part A. I'm going to hand over to Philip for this item. Thank you, Philip.
Right, that's great. Thank you, Chair. So just a brief introduction on this report. So the purpose of the report is to present the details of the York and North Yorkshire devolution deal, which was announced by government on the 1st of August. As members will have seen when you've read the paper, the main focus of the report is on the content of the devolution deal. There's quite a lot of detail within the report itself, but there is also a more detailed paper at Annex A as part of your pack of information. In terms of the, if you like, the main part of the report, section 6, the main part of the report does remind committee that negotiations on a devolution deal started in February 2022, following the publication of the Levelling Up White Paper. There were 3 types of devolution deal available to local areas, but York and North Yorkshire has pursued what's called a Level 3 devolution deal, and that provides the greatest level of funding, powers, flexibilities, and ability within the region to make its own decisions going forward. Section 6.7 of the report, as you will have seen, sets out this in a series of bullet points, the key elements of the proposed deal, and as I say, there is further information at Annex A. In financial terms, as set out in section 7.1, the deal will unlock significant new investment into York and North Yorkshire. I suppose the headline is the Gain Share or Mayoral Investment Fund, which is worth £80 million per annum to the region over 30 years, so £540 million in total. In addition to that, there is other funding, which is highlighted within the report and will be available through subsequent CSR processes. So the headline figure is the deal is probably estimated to be worth £750 million to North and North Yorkshire. And one of the key points to make, I'm sure James will emphasise that in questions, is that this is simply devolution deal 1.0 if the deal is agreed and goes forward, with the opportunity to negotiate further deals, further powers, further freedoms and further funding in years ahead. As Councillor Keels mentioned, this was originally on the agenda as a Part B report. That was in the expectation that in addition to the information on the deal itself, we'd have more detailed information on the governance issues around the Mayoral Combined Authority and also the potential Mayoral Combined Authority scheme of governance. But unfortunately, that information is not available for this evening, but it will be presented to full council on the 15th of September. So in summary then, as I've mentioned, this report focuses upon the content of the York and North Yorkshire devolution deal, with the recommendation that committee considers the content of the deal and notes that this further report, including more information on the governance review and on the Mayoral Combined Authority scheme, will be presented to the next full council meeting in mid-September. So I'll probably leave it there, Chair, if that's okay. I'm happy to take any questions, but any more detailed technical ones, I think James, who's lived and breathed this for at least 2 or 3 years, will help out as well. So we'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, I think James has been living and breathing it and knows they're going to for quite a lot longer yet, I believe. My understanding is that the further information is hot off the press very soon, but we'll be there for the our September meeting. So really over to you, members. James has come specifically to answer any technical questions that you might have on the deal, having read the paperwork that you have before you. So would anybody like to ask James, any questions at this point? Councillor Frank?
Yeah, can I ask, this new council that's going to be formed and has it been ratified yet? Are they making decisions already as to what goes forward?
No, so what's been published is what's called as a minded to deal. So it's basically an offer from government to the region. So that's what we have on the table at the moment. There's now a formal governance process to go through in order to create the combined authority. So there are three what we call local decision making points, which need to be made in York and North Yorkshire by the constituent councils. So there's the first thing is what's called a governance review. And following that, you produce what's called a scheme, which sets out what the combined authority will do and how it will operate. Both those elements will be in the paper, which Philip referenced, which will be available for your full council on the 15th of September. So I've seen the final draft report this morning. So I think that's been topped and tailed to be ready. Following that, there is a public consultation. So there'll be an 8-week public consultation, which will run from October through to December. And obviously, once we get the results of that consultation, we'll consider the results of that consultation, and a final decision will then come back to the constituent councils, who will then say, OK, we've done the governance review, we've gone for the public consultation on the scheme. This is the feedback from that. Are we happy to proceed? At that point, we submit it to Whitehall. And then once it gets submitted to Whitehall, there's a legal process it goes through within Whitehall in order to create an order, and that's likely to be November 2023. So there's about a 15-month process from now, which is kind of the legal processes. So between now and February next year is within region. It's the governance within region to make sure the region wants to progress. And then once you've gone through that, you then go into Whitehall, and there'll be an order passed by Parliament, hopefully in November 23, with the mayor being elected in May 2024.
Thank you, James. Does anybody else have any questions? Councillor Burr?
Yeah, quite a lot of people have said to me, James, why are we bothering? Because this is a done deal anyway. Why weren't we consulted, and why was it just thrust upon us? Because it's a political view coming obviously from central government. And probably I share their views that no matter what we think around this table, and I know that we will be probably told that you know, if we don't support this, you know, we'll be doing us out of such a lot of money. I've heard things like that before. Residents that I speak to are really disappointed that they were asked, along with they weren't asked if we wanted to become a big authority at North York County Council. So while we're hearing that it's going to be the most marvellous thing ever, and it's going to bring all this money in and all these other fantastic things, people are very concerned because they say, well, it's happening anyway. So my question to you is, and probably I guess you're just the messenger because you're not in government, but why weren't people consulted about this?
So if we look at the process that we've gone through, so well, there's two stages. So I'll kind of jump ahead to start with. So in February, government published what was called the Levelling Up White Paper. And the Levelling Up White Paper was a government document, and it set out to all parts of the country, all regions, the options for devolution should any region wish to pursue it. And as Philip mentioned, there's tables in the document. There was 3 levels: level 3, level 2, level 1. And if you went mayor with a combined authority, you got greatest level of devolution and greatest levels of funding. But it was up to any region whether they wish to progress that. Now, obviously, that wasn't new information. So if you go back a couple of years, we, as a region, as York and North Yorkshire, we did submit our proposals to government saying we wanted to progress devolution negotiations. And that deal that was submitted to government was approved by all the local authorities. So it came through all the districts, the county and York. So we submitted a proposal to government in December 2020, which had been worked up in the region by the region around the region's priorities. Obviously, that was 2020. Then government made its decision on local government reorganisation. It then said, well, let's publish the white paper and then we'll start negotiations, which is why negotiations started in February this year. Obviously, by necessity, negotiations have to happen in private. You can't do negotiations in public, which is why there's now a minded to deal. So nothing's been agreed yet. This is the offer on the table, as it were, the best that's been able to negotiate. There is now the opportunity to consult, so it's not a done deal. The deal is on the table. It is subject to approval by the councils as part of a governance review first of all, and then it will go to the public consultation where the public will be able to consulting and legally it has to be compliant with the gunning review, with the gunning principles. Sorry, they're the principles of consultation. So you have to take account what the feedback on that consultation is. So what I would say is it was the region's decision to submit devolution, and that's, like I say, all councils were involved with that. We've done the negotiation. We've now submitted, we've now got a deal on the table, and there'll be a public consultation whether to accept that deal or not, and whether it's good for the region or not. So it's for the region to make that decision. So I would argue that people can't, given that the councils are the elected members and they're voted in by the electorate. I think all elected members have been engaged in this process and were part of putting our deal together. So I'm not sure I quite agree that there hasn't been that consultation. So there hasn't been the public consultation about whether to progress, but the elected members who were democratically elected have all been engaged and involved in the process.
Chair, and if I could just come back on that one, I do appreciate everything that you're saying, but it wasn't all unanimous everywhere and everybody. And all I'm saying is that's what I'm saying, and levelling up when, you know, government papers are produced and levelling up, you know, it's a very, very broad brush is levelling up. When you get into the details, you know, that's when it hits you really is what's happening. And this is what people are saying. And my question, and probably I've heard the answer actually, but for the benefit of the people who weren't at a previous meeting, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, because we're told that it's so fantastic, but if you don't like the so fantastic deal, you won't get anything anyway. So really you've got to vote for it whether you like it or not. And maybe that's the way that some people like to do business, but I don't think it's a really good way to do business. People are really fed up at the moment with everything that's going on. And obviously they just feel it's another thing that's been done to them. I appreciate that you're working really hard and you're doing everything you can, and it's your job and it's not your policy. And I do appreciate that. But I just think that it's really important that not everybody is all singing, all dancing about this. Quite a lot of people are really worried about it.
Course.
And I think that's absolutely right. And I think that's, you know, in any policy that is the case. But ultimately, like I say, there is now a consultation on the table. Government were clear in February with the white paper in that if you wanted the 30-year investment fund, if you wanted that certainty of investment, government wanted a directly elected mayor to be held accountable for delivery of it. They were absolutely clear about that, and it was up to any region then whether to take that. And ultimately, that's the decision we now have to take as the York and North Yorkshire region, is whether we think £500 million plus of investment is worth it to bring a mayor into the region, and that's the decision we've got to make.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also going to make observations before I ask the question, if that's okay. And really, is the devolution process started. I remember as my early days as councillor, and I think that devolution this is evolution of devolution in my mind, because we employed KPMG, I think, as consultants. They came up with we should be linked with York, and there was various numbers of constituents that should be in the 3 regions. This would appear to me, quoting Councillor Oxley, I'm somewhat confused at the moment, but it seems to me that the numbers don't count anymore because we are being linked with York and North Yorkshire. I go along with, you know, a lot of people, the local people, the constituents that I represent, were against devolution in the first place. And we get this carrot and stick stuff, and the carrots seem to be bigger and bigger every day that goes by. And the stick is, if you don't play games, you don't get no carrots at all. The question is, I won't go on, but the question is, so am I right in thinking that York now, who wouldn't speak to KPMG, they wouldn't enter a dialogue whatsoever, are now closely linked with North Yorkshire in a one mayor situation.
I'm not going to pass any comment about local government reorganisation. In that, obviously,
I'm not asking you.
yeah, no, but devolution. You know, going back before local government reorganisation came onto the table, the devolution discussions and the opportunities to create devolution and discussions started before that. And York and North Yorkshire have always been around the table having those discussions. So I think there's a fundamental difference in that devolution is about economic development. It's about that economic growth agenda. Obviously, local government reorganisation is a much broader agenda. It's all services that the councils deliver. And I think on that economy agenda, York and North Yorkshire have always worked together, and they've always worked quite closely. So if you go back to the local enterprise partnership, we've operated covering both York and North Yorkshire for 10 years now. So it's a well-established relationship. And even before then, there was a York and North Yorkshire partnership unit, which was operating, which were, again, was both York and North Yorkshire working together. So economically, York and North Yorkshire have worked together as long as I've been in this business, as long as I've been around. Obviously, local government organisation is a much broader, bigger discussion, and it's a separate kind of conversation. So I don't think York have come around the table for devolution. I think devolution is that economic agenda just going to the next step. And you're right, there's a carrot and the stick, and we felt the carrot was big enough to go for, which is why we've gone for it.
Supplementary question, Councillor Ivy?
Thank you. I'll try and think of one quickly. So what you're telling me that York and North Yorkshire have always got on together. So my recollections here, you know, when we still said no to, when people like me said no to devolution, we said we couldn't follow that through because it would be legal, because KPMG, which seemed a contradiction, we employed consultants, but I didn't think you had to follow that by law. But we spent, I think, something in the region totally of about $750,000, who spoke to York, and there was no relationship whatsoever. We were going to, I repeat, we were going to have three areas of approximately 500,000 in each area. But now you tell me there's always been a good relationship between York and North Yorkshire. We spent 750,000 with KPMG and ignore their advice in the end, because we didn't link with York because that wasn't practical. But you're saying, well, it was always okay anyway. So I feel I've been misled in the last 3 years. Totally misled. Thank you.
Don't necessarily think that's something you want to reply to, James. Yeah, okay. Councillor Clark.
Can I just ask how set in stone this is in terms of if there were points that as a council we wanted to explore and maybe look at changing? Are there options for us on that?
Can you just expand on what you mean there? So I think, and there's two aspects to that. There's the offer, the financial offer, and the content of the deal, as it were. That's the offer that's on the table. That's the decision that we're making. Now, obviously, what we will expect the mayor to do the minute we get a mayor elected is to go back to government and ask for devolution deal 1.1, 1.2, and go back for further devolution, further investment, etc., etc. So absolutely. Or are you asking about the governance of the combined authority and how it's run? So I think there's two very different things. There's one, how it operates locally, and the other is actually what's the deal we're making a decision on financially, and what's that worth? Because the deal is obviously absolutely nailed down. Government have made the offer now, and we can't go back and say, well, we'll accept this, but we want this changing, and that's the deal that's been agreed.
I was looking at various sort of policy points in this rather than the actual finances of it. I was thinking that there were various sort of policy points that.
Can you give me an example? Sorry.
Well, one that I was looking at was the fact that we were looking at being the first carbon negative authority.
Yeah.
And I was going to explore how we were going to be able to do that. And
Right, yeah. So that's a vision and ambition. So absolutely, and obviously the mayor will be elected on a platform, and obviously the mayor's priorities obviously will then have to be taken into account by the combined authority. And if you look at Ben Houchin in Tees Valley or Tracy Brabin in West Yorkshire, you've seen they've come in and that they have made those changes from that perspective. If you want to explore the carbon negative more, that's probably not a discussion around devolution. We have a very detailed route map to carbon negative on how we're going to get there. which is publicly available. And I know Philip's team have been actively engaged in that. More than happy to firstly share that. Equally more than happy for my head of low carbon to come and speak to the council and talk through what's in it and the content. And if it's something specific around there, there's actually a really fantastic piece of work around getting there. There's a huge challenge in financing it, but we absolutely have a good strong piece of work. But those policy areas such as the ambition to be carbon negative, or perhaps the fact we'd want 100% digital coverage across the region. Now they're all things which are you wouldn't want to change them now, but the things that you might want to go back to government with deal 1.1, 1.2 with, they're the policy areas. So this is the whole purpose: get this over the line so we've got them there, because we then have that conversation with government, and so we can go back and say, right, we've delivered on stage 1. Now we want stage 2, stage 3. And if you look at, well, Manchester are the most advanced, they're kind of 15 years ahead. But if you look at Tees Valley or West Yorkshire, they had their first deal with, which ours is significantly better than what they got in the first instance. But actually they've now got deals 2, 3, 4 and 5. So they've got really major kind of devolution once they've got over that line. So those policy areas where we might want to pursue government for further devolution, what we've created is the platform to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold, were you indicating? Oh, sorry, I thought you were. Do you have any other questions for James? Okay, I just wonder, James, whether it's worth sharing with members some of what you shared. Obviously not the whole presentation that you shared with group leaders, but just the point that we are being asked to sort of support the devolution deal, but in actual fact the decision making process ultimately lies with York City Council and North Yorkshire Council, because I'm not sure that all members are aware of that, and obviously we're being asked to support it, and that will be a decision that will be made in September. But I just want to make sure that members are all aware that that will not be our we won't be able to influence that.
Yeah, the paper will be clear about that. So Scarborough, so we've kind of now got the paper, the technical paper, if you like, in place, which is written from a North Yorkshire and York perspective. Scarborough drafting, if you like, a cover report for use by the districts, which will absolutely explain that we're asking them to endorse and support it. But if you like, the authorities that will be in place when the combined authority comes into being will be the constituent authorities, and that's North Yorkshire and York.
Okay, thank you. And then my other point was just a comment, really, in that I think a few members have said thoughts that they've had from members of the public that they represent. I think probably quite a lot of work needs to go into promoting the idea of the mayor, because a lot of people have said to me that they're okay with devolution and they think it'd be really beneficial to the region, but they are seriously concerned about the cost of a mayor with their entourage. And I know, you know, the comment's been made that the mayor will also take on the police and crime commissioner and fire service role as well. So there will be some cost savings there. But I do think in the public, there is a general sort of concern about people I've spoken to as to why we need a mayor as part of this process. And why it can't just be taken forward by the authorities, the constituent authorities.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. So just two things I would say that we've created a website, so yndevolution.com, with lots of frequently asked questions and various bits and bats. So again, we'll make sure that's circulated so that if people are speaking to the public, they can signpost them there. And as new questions come in, we're constantly updating it from that perspective. And then, like I say, we'd really welcome the support from Rydale around the consultation, so that we make sure that when we do go out to consultation, we reach all parts. And we make sure that all people get the opportunity to feed in through that consultation process. So I think there's a really important role that Rydale can play in supporting that, so that we can make sure that the members in Rydale get a chance to put their comments across.
Thank you, James. Councillor Bird, do you want to come back?
If I could just ask a couple more questions, please, if that's okay. So we all know that the leader of York Council has come out in support of this, and we all know that the leader of the County Council has come out in support of this. So we know that it's going to go through. Whatever happens, that the numbers are there, and we're sure it's going to go through. It won't go through unanimously, but it's going to happen. Okay, so I think, you know, I talk to people all the time, and I say, I'm sorry, but it's going to happen, whether you like it or not. It is happening. So I think that, as Councillor Keane said, quite a lot of people are interested in the numbers. So they want to know, obviously, the new mayor is going to take over the Chief Crime Commissioner appointment. And maybe some numbers behind that would be helpful as to what that position is salaried at and what the mayor is salaried at and the cost savings that there would be. But also a lot of people are quite worried that one person is going to have such a lot of power. Now, if it's the political party that you aspire to and you like, then that's great. More power, more power, power, power. But that's not the way really that the world should work, because we all should be working together, and we all also should not be using this as a political tool. It should be a tool that everybody can feed into, and it will support absolutely everybody. So I think for me to be able to try and sell it to people to appease them and make them think that this is the most fantastic deal ever, even if maybe I don't 100% support it, what sort of savings are going to be then with the mayoral's money and his entourage or whatever? I'm not really sure what happens. And does he have a cabinet? How is that going to work? I think that's quite an interesting one. Or don't we talk about that yet until it's signed off?
No. So some questions I can answer, some I can't. So there is a constraint within the deal that the mayor can have one political advisor. So with regard to an entourage, as it were, he's allowed one. He, she, or they are allowed one political advisor. So it's not going to be creating a big government office with a huge raft of political advisors swanning around. It'll be the mayor, and then there will be the secretariat, which will be largely built upon the LEP. So the LEP will be fully integrated within this. So we've had the LEP for 10, 11 years, and hopefully Rydal will look back and say actually they've done pretty well out of our LEP actually from that perspective. And so interestingly, probably in a very typical York and North Yorkshire way, that both North Yorkshire Council and York are, what we don't want is an empire building here. We want something which is lean and mean, and is, if you like, LEP plus. So look at what we've got on at the moment and build upon that, and kind of put the capability in. So we're not looking at creating a huge machinery of government, and lots of the delivery will take place by North Yorkshire Council or City of York Council, and we'll look to do that. So with regard to the concerns about the cost, there'll be no cost, if you like, the cost won't have any detraction on the funding of either North Yorkshire Council or York Council. It'll be self-funded, and obviously through its investment money that it gets, it won't be a massive beast. With regard to the governance structure, though, yeah, the mayor will sit with a cabinet. So there'll be 2 members from North Yorkshire and 2 members from York. So, and then non-voting will be the chair of the LEP. So there'll be a cabinet of 6, of which 5 can vote. So the mayor will chair it, 2 North Yorkshire, 2 York, and then the LEP chair will be the business voice, but non-voting unless they decide to give them a vote on particular issues. So what we've done within the governance is ensure that the mayor can't just go off and do whatever they want. So there are constraints in there about what the powers of the mayor can be, where the mayor can make a decision on their own, where they need to have a unanimous sign off by with both York and North Yorkshire, or where they need the approval of the constituent council. So, for example, one of the powers of the mayor is to create a mayoral development corporation, which is a vehicle to accelerate growth of a particular site. The mayor cannot do that without the support of the council where that site is located. So again, you've got North Yorkshire County Council, North Yorkshire Council with its democratic accountability has that right of veto. And generally that's the principle in this. If it's a physical investment which is happening in a place, it will also need the support of the council where it's going to be based from that perspective. So this stops the mayor, I know, building a power station in the middle of the North York Moors because we want to. So if you take an exaggerated or something like that. So there's absolutely the things the mayor can do, but there are these constraints to make sure that North Yorkshire Council and York Council have the right vetoes in the right place, and we're looking to do things by majority and unanimous vote rather than the mayor just being a kind of wild card.
Come back there then. So if we could just have some numbers around, obviously, the mayor's salary, and obviously that offset with the police and crime commissioner. But also you said about, you know, the local councils will have to agree. Obviously they're all being abolished, so there'll be no more like us to agree. There's no body to agree. They'll just agree by themselves. But we will still have our town councils, etc. So I think that's what you're probably referring to. So it sounds as though it's all sorted out, really, isn't it?
Well, if like the governance principles are largely sorted out, and they had to be, because the Treasury wouldn't have agreed the deal without being confident that we had some governance arrangements in place that could work. So that's set out actually in the deal document, which is Annex A. So it's in there. So absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, we will absolutely. There's no question about it. You know, as a LEP, one thing that we've realised is that the only way to deliver is by working well with local areas. So, and that doesn't change. So it's fine having a combined authority which sits there strategically and kind of secures investment from central government. But actually success will be delivery on the ground. Success will be the difference that we make to the communities and the people of York and North Yorkshire. And therefore the combined authority is going to have really strong local relationships to enable that delivery. It won't be the combined authority that's putting spade in the ground. It'll be other people who are doing that and doing the work. So, you know, there is a stark practicality about this, in that as any body, if you are looking to attract investment from government, you have to have a track record of delivery. So if you're a combined authority which is getting 20 million pound a year or whatever number it is, and actually after 5 years you've only spent a third of it, then government aren't going to give you any more. So if we want more investment for the region, if we want further devolution to the region, then we have to be a region that delivers. And in order to deliver, you have to have that relationship between the strategic element and the delivery on the ground. So I think just you can put into governance whatever you want, but actually there's a stark reality of making it happen on the ground, and actually behaviours and people and relationships will make it happen. So yes, the governance is set, it's in the document and it's there. However, the harsh reality, or the stark reality, is there will be strong relationships, because otherwise you can't deliver. The cost. So yeah, and I don't know. I'll be absolutely honest with you. That's a really good question, in that I will go back and ask that, and I'll make sure that is circulated, because I'm not even sure that's been finalised yet, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But it's a good point.
The thing is, you see, things like that matter to people on the ground,
Yeah.
and they're not really interested in all the policy and all the fine print, because, you know, they say, well, it's out of our control. But what they are interested in is, well, how much is this person, you know, going to earn?
Yeah.
How much are we saving on this? And this has been the big debate. You know, Rydale District Council is going, end of, finished, couple.
Yeah.
But where is our money going? How much money have we saved? You know, where is our money going to be spent? People are very, very interested in those details.
Yeah.
So cost of living crisis and everything, I think that would be really helpful. And then we could say, well, you know, they get this, but the Police and Crime Commissioner got that. So look at it like that.
Yeah.
Be helpful.
No, it's a good point. Yeah, I need to check it. That there will have to be a formal process around the setting the remuneration of the mayor. So at the very least, we need to set that process out. So if it hasn't been decided yet, what we need to be able to say is this is how it will be decided, whether that's a remuneration committee or whatever else it might be. But you're right. We have to be open and transparent around all these things. You cannot start off with kind of cloak and dagger and not being transparent. And there's certainly nothing being hidden. It's just a question, if I'm honest with you. I've not been asked, so I'll go away and I'll address that.
And sorry for.
Okay,
But
one more.
On a final point, I do think that, you know, you, the LEP, have done well for Rydale.
Thank you. We like Rydale.
Thank you, Councillor Bear. Councillor Frank, did you want to come back in?
Please, could I? I just wondered, with having a mayor and four other councillors, 2 from York and 2 from Northallerton, with deciding on everything there. If this mayor's got political leanings towards one party or another, it's going to be really skewed towards either York and their political leanings or Northallerton and their political leanings. And I just wondered if well, I really wondered how the mayor, what its term would be, and how, if they're not performing the way the councils want the mayor to perform, is there any way in place of them being voted in or out or kept, or, you know, what their term was?
Yeah, so the mayor will be elected on the same term as the Police and Crime Commissioner in an election, and they will stand for that term.
Is that 5 years?
I'm sorry, I knew you were going to ask me that question, Philip. Is that 5 years?
I believe it's 5 years, councillor Frank, but we will confirm
Yeah.
that formally outside the meeting for you.
With regard to the ability to remove them, I think it would be the same as it is for any other elected member in that there are certain behaviours and kind of wrongdoings that they can be removed from. I don't think they can just be voted down in an ad hoc way. With regard to your comment about the kind of their political leanings and that skewing the level of investment that goes to York or North Yorkshire, what we've done within the governance, we've tried to balance that so that can't happen. So it's not just a simple majority, if you like. We've kind of got on key decision making things. We've got to have either the 3/4 majority or something which ensures that, if you like, the mayor and North Yorkshire can't go to York, or the mayor and York can't go to North Yorkshire. There's got to be some level of agreement between the three parties to progress it. So yeah, we're absolutely aware of that, and I think probably York, given that North Yorkshire's 3 times as big, obviously that was a very sensitive issue in York.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, we've been talking about figures. Something's actually just also dropped into my head, James. Sorry, I keep putting you on the spot. I keep hearing that our deal is better than Tees Valley. Do we have figures, and it may be in the report and I just haven't read it or found it. Do we have a comparison of the benefits of devolution sort of per head of population in comparison to, I mean, you may not have that now, but if you could also share that figure, that would be very helpful.
What I can say is, if you look at the gain shares, the main amount, so our gain share is comparable with Tees Valley. It's about the same per head, and it's £22 a head. So obviously what we've got 1 or 2 extra bits on top of that. So our devolution deal is not better than what Tees Valley have now. What we're talking about, this is the importance of getting over that line and getting in place and going back for deal 2, 3 or 4. So if you look at what Tees Valley got at deal 1 or West Yorkshire got at deal 1, what we've got is a really comparable and a good deal comparison to that, but they've gone back and got more and deeper devolution because they've demonstrated an ability to deliver. But the main financial items of the 540 million, which is the headline figure, is £22 a head.
Okay, thank you. Final call, nobody else. So thank you, James, for attending this evening and being put through the mill with some slightly tricky questions in some cases, but thank you for that. And as I say, members, we will revisit this in the September full council, but with a lot more detail than we have before us this evening. So James, you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you would like to hear all about our other discussions. But if you'd like to go home, please, thank you very much for your help. Thank you. So members, the recommendation is just that we note the discussion and the report that you have before you this evening, which I think we can just do by general affirmation. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're now moving on to Part B items, which are matters that will be referred to council from this committee. So item 13, the allocation of community infrastructure levy funds, which is on pages 45 to 54. I think this one is going to be presented by Amy. Craig Natras has been doing a huge amount of work on this as well as Amy, but Craig's away at the moment, so Amy's going to report to you. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Evening, everybody, and yes, apologies, it is me this evening. Just a quick, I'm going to just quickly go through some of the information in the allocation of community infrastructure levy funds paper, which you should all have read or received rather. So just a little bit of background. Papers sort of come about sort of following the desire of council members, the desire that council members indicated that they would like to look at utilising the council's remaining SIL budget prior to March 23, and that was following the discussions we've had recently regarding the Norton College AstroTurf application, which was also to request SIL funding. That's the background to where this paper's originally come from. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of key areas of the report, and then I'll go back to just summarising the recommendations, if that's okay, but I'll be really quick, I promise. So yeah, just firstly was to mention that SIL funding is traditionally earmarked for areas that have taken substantial growth And generally, it's considered that it gives councils and authorities the ability to fund sort of significant infrastructure such as highways and schools. So the sort of things that ad hoc developments and current Section 106 agreements can't necessarily do. So that's a bit of a background to to where SIL has come from. Currently, Rydell has approximately about £3.1 million of unallocated SIL funding within our budget. And at the moment, we are not aware of any decision by the new council, the new North Yorkshire Council, with how they plan to use SIL funding in the future. As per the recommendations, there are two routes really that is proposed for members to consider as the starting basis for allocation, should they choose to go down that route. The first is to base any new sort of scheme on the local development plan policy SP22, which is already obviously within the plan, or the second option is around a wider scheme. For completeness, I just want to add that the alternative to spending SIL is to retain SIL within the authority, and that would then maybe allow this council or a future council to address larger value schemes in the future. For example, a new primary school in Norton upon Derwent, which is the thought that was originally mooted as to why we were retaining SIL funds. The indication from the county council was that due to growth and numbers and population, that a new school would be required at some point. That hasn't been confirmed lately, but that was the original thinking. So should members decide they wish to proceed with spending the SIL allocation, we need to go through a process of designing a sort of spending protocol, and that's basically the design of a whole new scheme. So that comes from the expression of interest, the application process, the appraisal process, how we're dealing with the finances, all of that kind of side of things. Just to outline as well the potential timescales for this, we've sort of indicated some potential timescales in the paper, but I think they are. I just want to flag that they are approximate, and that's sort of subject to a bit of change, as we go through this process and we go through the Section 24 process at the county council. So there needs to be a bit of flex maybe around those. The final point I'm just going to draw your attention to is around in Section 7.1, which is the financial implications, and sort of summarises and sets out the position of the finance team. So just draws all your attention to the financial sort of aspect of utilising SIL should you choose to do that. So just to summarise the recommendations. Firstly, I just wanted to say that members should note that recommendation 2.1 little one is an either or decision. So 2.11, members are asked to establish their preference for the allocation of SIL funds, either through, as I mentioned earlier, through the SP22 policy as the basis, or through just creating a brand new scheme with a broader eligibility framework that would fit more projects than maybe SP22 would allow. Second recommendation is that members are asked to approve the development of the SIL funding protocol, so the structure of how we process the application, and that delegated authority for that is given then to the Director of Place and Resources, the Section 151 officer, and the Chair of Policy and Resources to approve that, purely because of the timeframes that we're working to. Third recommendation is that SIL funding available would be allocated, or that may be allocated as a result of this decision, should not exceed the current SIL funds received to date, and we should make sure that we uphold any existing commitments, for example, the Norton scheme. And the fourth recommendation is that delegated authority is given to the Director of Place, along with the Section 151 officer and the Chair of Policy and Resources, to approve any SIL funding applications, but following consultation with a SIL focused grants working party. So I hope that gives a short summary.
Thank you for that, Amy, and that's very helpful. Do members have any questions for Amy? Councillor Arnold?
Yeah, we're given a choice of going through the being not on plan, going through the infrastructure, or going through a new scheme with broader eligibility framework. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
But I can't see what the difference is. I know you say all the little ones can't apply for them. Go on the first one. It's a disadvantage for all the little people who are listed on that list. Can't apply in that.
Yeah, not necessarily the smaller ones are at a disadvantage, if that's the right word. So the policy, that's the SP22 policy, outlines that where in the plan, in the local development plan, that's where they felt the key areas of sort of development would be needed. If you went for a broader scheme, as in, and that would cover the types of projects that are listed in Annex 2, that would give you more kinds of projects that would be able to be funded. If that's it, you're just broadening the parameters of it essentially. So, for example, take the museums and the cultural organisations, for instance, they don't necessarily fall very clearly into SP22, whereas if you had a broader scheme, that might be applicable. So it's broadening the parameters rather than large and small, if that makes sense.
Therefore, from my point of view, option 2, which gives us a broader scope, is better. And that view is
Possibly. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it'll come of no surprise that I want this money to be retained, kept and spent in Rydale. And I want the broader option. I also would like to ask our officers that although we have something worked up, it could be helpful for us, because obviously to work something brand new up is quite a significant challenge and quite a lot of work for our officers. So what I'm looking at here is maybe saying to our officers, asking their advice, could we not, you know, do a little bit of overlapping, cross-referencing, whatever you want to make option 2 work, but using the basis or the bare bones of what we've already got in place, because I'd hate to go for option 2 and then realise that we probably shot ourselves in the foot, because it's going to take us such a long time to get it all organised that we actually can't work with it. So I guess that's just a question that I would like you maybe to give your, you know, as an officer, give advice, because you know what your workload and capacity is really. Structure. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, within the structure that we've got,
within
yeah.
the structures that we've already got. Yes. There's definitely things that we could take from bits of those grant applications. I think the thing that makes me really a little bit cautious with that at the moment is that currently the grants that we offer through Rydale are relatively small. You know, we're talking about a significant pot of money here that could attract, you know, grant requests in the hundreds of thousands. I feel we probably need a bit more of a robust process, particularly in terms of the evaluation and the appraisal of those sorts of schemes and sort of the business case that we would need to pull out. So I think there's probably bits that we can pull, but I think there's probably bits that need to be new as well, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and I absolutely expected you to say that, but my thoughts were that what you're telling me is what I want to hear. We don't have to go right from scratch and start right from scratch. We could pull things through and get this moving.
Yeah, there are things that we can certainly pull through. I'm not going to say that necessarily means it's going to be a particularly quick process. You know, we'll obviously do it as quick as we possibly can. But yeah, there's things that we can use as a basis. You know, I'm sure there's like application forms we can use as a basis and guidance notes for applicants that we can use as a basis. But I think that as I say, I think that the most difficult bit that we're going to have to work a bit harder on is actually what we're trying to take out of these applicants when they make an application. So it's what we're expecting in that business case. What are we appraising it on? And I think it's that side of things, because, you know, it's a big financial investment and we obviously want to make sure that we're really sure about that investment.
Yeah.
I just think that what we need to do, we want to open it up to as many as possible. And we don't want to discriminate against any organisation at all. And I personally wouldn't like it if someone came with the 2 million and we were thinking, oh, let's do that and let's leave everyone else behind. I would prefer to put prime lots of different initiatives and hopefully get 80% of them up and running. That's what I would like to do. But I suppose it's up to councillors what they decide on as to what can be done, isn't it? Really, it's our decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's sort of why we've got the options in front of you, and it's your sort of decision and discussion to have. You know, I guess it's way up that balance of, do you want the lots of small projects or do you want to sort of go down the bigger route sort of thing?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Amy's sort of outlined in the report that there's a timetable to that hopefully we would work to, but yes, it's also about staff capacity. But yeah, I completely agree with the sort of the statements about how we'd have to have much more robust business cases behind these applications, because it's different to what the community grants give out at the moment. But I think having the grants working party also involved in the process will also make sure that we have a member overview of that. Councillor Graham.
I appreciate what Councillor Burr has said, but am I right in thinking that the SIL is specifically for infrastructure?
Sorry, that's my understanding, is that's why SIL was originally gathered, was for it's the vehicle and the tool that was originally, I think, envisaged, that it would allow for those significant infrastructure projects, like I said before, the ones that are currently would fall outside of a Section 106 agreement, or that would allow you to do that infrastructure investment around development or around those areas that had taken a lot of development previously. I do have two planning colleagues on the call if they can provide any more assistance with regards to the background to SIL. Rachel or Lizzie?
Good evening, members. Yes, thank you, Amy. Yes, the Community Infrastructure Levy, it came out really out of the Infrastructure Act, which was sort of around 2008. And it is very much, as Amy was saying, it's a vehicle for supporting and delivering growth and providing opportunities for significant infrastructure to help deliver that growth. And it's one of the reasons why we've reached the point where we have what is a sizable amount of money, but we have not yet, as a council, decided how to spend that money. Certainly through the process of preparing the local plan, it was indicated to us that we would be looking to deliver via obviously the local education authority, a new primary school, and that was likely to be sited at Norton Lodge. There is the current planning application with the authority, and that's under consideration, and that identifies land for a primary school, but it doesn't deliver the primary school. And whilst the land would have to be netted off their SIL contribution, that would deliver a significant contribution in its own right. And I would have thought that would have probably been something that would have then sort of facilitated making contributions towards that particularly significant infrastructure project. I think it's fair to say that when we have had our discussions with the local plan working party, and when we're discussing the local plan review with members of the community, one of the key messages that we get is, where's the infrastructure coming from when you're talking about new development and new houses being built? Where will the new provision for doctors' surgeries, extensions to school, improved infrastructure in relation to drainage, telecommunications, broadband, roads? Those are often sort of common questions that we are receiving on a regular basis. So that's a bit of the background. I hope that's useful for members.
Thank you, Rachel. I think that is helpful. My understanding was, with regards to the sort of the areas that can be covered by infrastructure, they're actually quite broad, as you've said. They're not just what you would think of automatically for infrastructure of roads, schools, etc. They are quite broad, and there are other categories that you can put into there. I think my other point is that my understanding is also that the Education Authority hasn't in recent times really pushed for the school in Norton. So I think that's also worth mentioning. But thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Rachel? Is this for Rachel or for Amy? For Rachel. So this is Councillor Andrews. Rachel.
Thank you. Can you just, well, no, sorry either. Sorry, I was looking at saying Rachel and looking at Amy. Yeah, 3.3. just for clarification, it says members should note that the recommendation is either or, blah, blah, blah. If it's appendix 1, then the SIL funds will be spent in line with the local development plan. The potential scheme listed in appendix 2 may therefore not necessarily be eligible to make an application. If the decision is to go to the creation of a scheme with wider eligibility, as indicated by the potential schemes found in appendix 2, then SIL funds may not be spent on schemes which support the local development plan. So you're saying it's one or the other, so we're completely negating,
Yes.
you're not broadening it, you're
So I guess we've put two options on the table. One is that you create a scheme that's based around the policy SP22, which has got those areas of development and infrastructure that we're looking for. Or you say, no, actually, we want a much wider scheme that will do all kinds of things. And therefore, by doing that, you may actually end up having projects that don't necessarily fit with SP22 and the money, the policy that the money kind of relates to. That makes sense.
I think I had Councillor Ryby next. Councillor Arnold, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Lost my line of thought, really. Yeah, I openly declare that I feel as a representative of Kirby Ward, I've missed out on various fundings in the past 3 years that I've been here one way or another. And therefore, I would be much in favour of option 2, thinking that I can rectify this. I believe that the SILs should stay in the area and it should possibly be spent. And there's a word that I just want clarification on, if I can find it. Oh, yes, before vesting day. I assume that means the end of the district council.
It does, yes. Sorry, vesting day is the 1st of April, so the first day of the new authority. Sorry, yes.
So you kind of tell us from previous discussion that option 2, if we went for it, could be achieved if that's what we chose to do.
I think the challenges of both options in terms of what we can spend are exactly the same, regardless of which option you go for. We've still got the same amount of time to deliver projects with the same amount of money. So I think it's going to be a huge challenge to allocate the money, let alone spend the money, if I'm honest, regardless of which option you go for.
Okay, so it's a bit iffy anyway.
Well, it depends on the projects that come forward and all sorts of things. Yeah.
So the 2 projects that I've campaigned, one is for Paths for All, which could be argued as infrastructure, and the other, which comes in, and this is an area between Councillor Arnold and my area, is a sports pitch for Rydell School. This is well documented. You've already got quite a lot of figures there. So if we question whether we should stay with not option 2, but the other one, I needn't worry about that because you've got the figures there and it shouldn't need a lot of work to say, yeah, that's okay. I do believe that we shouldn't be greedy and get more than pro rata for the area that we represent. So, I'm not asking for £500,000 to come on to Kirby or Helmsley area, but I do expect a substantial amount if we do put it in. So, I say the school playing field thing we put in for 250,000, which is a substantial amount of money. And Paths for All scheme is £1 million sort of thing, really, but or more than that probably, isn't it? But we were looking for some help to get it going. I'm saying, yeah, let's go for option 2, and I'll be quite open about it. Is because I feel I've not represented my people well enough to get some of the money that some of the areas have got. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to come back on that?
No, I was just going to say that whatever process we go through, I just want to be clear that there's going to be an open, transparent process, and it's not a process of allocating certain money to certain areas. It will be projects on their merits and their community ability to deliver community benefit, and sort of there's going to be criteria along those lines. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Sir Arnold.
Thank you. A great long list here that's all comes into SP22 on page whatever it is, 52, but it doesn't actually include a lot of what's in that other list. There's a great that doesn't fit in with it, but there's a great long list. The other thing, there's a lot been talk about Norton School. Now, this is not a North Yorkshire County Council school, is it?
No, Northern College is an academy.
Hence the reason why North Yorkshire County Council is not going to build.
Oh, I think we might be talking at cross purposes.
But
So
I question why it's not, most of the money is not coming from North Yorkshire County Council as a school. I'm happy to agree that some money should go to it, because it's come, the sales come from Norton. So I'll leave that with you.
Do you want to explain that, Amy, or do you want me to?
do you want to?
Okay, so I think we're maybe at cross purposes, because I think the discussion has happened about the decision that this committee already recommended to fund some facilities at Norton College, which is the secondary school and is an academy, whereas the school that Amy and Rachel have referred to is a new primary school. So, and that will be a local authority primary school, I believe. Councillor Clark, I think you were next.
When we discussed the pitch at Norton, I wasn't sort of aware of that much of how the SIL funding was working. Just out of interest, we've been discussing at the primary school at Norton. Have we got any timescales for what was going to happen with there? Was there any sort of, had anybody sort of really planned anything, or was it just a sort of a distant idea in the future that we were really not sure
Yeah.
where we were going with it?
Yeah, I can ask Rachel to give us the exact specifics, but my understanding is that there were sort of county council projections based on sort of like, you know, population projections and the new build projections, and that sort of led them to sort of the indication that population was going to increase and therefore there was going to be a need for the school, but there was no exact timeframes that were attached to that or specific numbers that I'm aware of. But we'll ask Rachel if that's all right to clarify.
Just before we bring her in, I'd just also like to ask her, you know, have we done a load of work for this primary school as a sort of, as a plan, or have we, is it just an idea?
I don't
Right.
believe so, but again, and even if there were a scheme, it wouldn't necessarily be a Rydell scheme, it would be a North Yorkshire County Council scheme, but Rachel might clarify better for us. Thanks, Rachel. Rachel?
Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah, there has been discussions that informed the sort of local plan work, and that identified that based on the anticipated growth at Moulton Norton, based on the housing delivery over the plan period, it was felt that depending on where the sites ultimately came forward, land for a school would need to be identified, because a school would need to be ultimately delivered within the plan period. And we are 5 years off from hitting the end of the Rydell plan period. In terms of detailed plans, no. The county council, as far as we're aware, and the discussions that we've had as part of the local plan work, there has not been a proposal which has been sort of significantly firmed up in order to actually sort of go through the necessary stages. And obviously, as it stands with Norton Lodge, the site is still subject to being considered for planning permission. I would have thought that they would also need to build part of the road infrastructure to serve the school as well. So there's still quite a long way to go. I think it's fair to say with the primary school position.
I think also probably the pressure has been taken off the existing school a little bit, because they now have a split site, having moved into Brooklyn. So there's the pressure of numbers on the existing school, but obviously, yes, there will be substantial growth with the new developments should it go ahead. Do we have anybody who hasn't asked a question yet before we bring you back in, Councillor Burr? Oh, sorry. You both asked questions. So. Okay, Councillor Burr.
I just wanted to come back on the school issue because I think it's just muddying the water slightly. I think that the school that we are potentially talking about is a different subject to this particular amount of funding that we're actually discussing. And I do believe that if this site does come forward, which myself, Councillor Keel, Councillor Mackenzie, we've all discussed at Norton Town Council that a school probably would be developed there, but that would be probably in the realms of North York county council or the new council. So I don't think really that is really what we're discussing tonight. And I just wanted clarification from our officer. Is that what you believe as well? Please.
Is that for Rachel?
Yeah.
For
sorry.
Rachel. Sorry, Rachel.
Thought she was looking at me.
So, sorry, is that for me?
Sorry, Rachel, I thought you were staring straight at me. Yes, my understanding is that we're not there yet. If it does happen, if that plan comes forward, it will be the new county council that will pick that up.
I think it's fair to say that in terms of bricks and mortar, you would be absolutely right. Yes, it would not be something that the it would be the new council that they would be looking at that. I think in terms of the likely SIL revenue that we anticipated we would be able to generate as part of the Rydal plan work, and bearing in mind by the time we brought SIL in, a fair chunk of development had taken place. It was probably likely to be around £6 million, which is about, I think, and this was a little while ago, and build costs have gone up. Would healthily be absorbed by a new primary school. But also, and the report does state this, that if any SIL charging collecting authority is asked to disperse money in relation to education provision, there also needs to be a recognition that there could be alternative funding sources which also need to be explored. In terms of what central government may be providing. Obviously, we've had the devolution discussions, and obviously that could change things significantly again in terms of what monies would be available within the North Yorkshire area to distribute to really what are often these big ticket, very expensive projects which unlock growth but are challenging to deliver if you are basing them on commuted sums being collected either through Section 106 agreements, which some authorities only employ, some authorities don't have SIL, or even in terms of collecting money for SIL. So, if the monies are split into various projects, there is merits to that, but there is also the cons of the fact that then you would not have that pool of money being able to then be invested in more significant infrastructure, and that is an issue to wrestle with really for members. I think it's fair to say.
Councillor Andrews?
The all four on recommendations the Focus Grants Working Party, would that be a working party from the P&R group, or would it be something else? And is any of this presumably won't be going back to full council? It'd be something that the working party would recommend because we can't vote on it, and it would just be delegated to the 3 people once we had our 2 penneth, whoever it was.
That's my understanding.
Yes, so the exact detail of the grants, the SIL Focus Grants Working Party is still not all being decided. I think we're quite conscious that we're aware that there is an existing grants working party, that they have a set sort of schedule of meetings, but then we were trying to balance that against, actually, we probably need to move this quite quickly, so there needs to be something perhaps slightly separate. Quite what that is and how that looks, I don't have those answers at the moment, but I think the broad proposal is that we would go to that group and we would seek recommendations, then the final sign off, I think, for the process, and to try and make things happen relatively quickly, was that the sign off would then be the Chair of Policy and Resources, the Section 151 officer, and the Director of Place and Resource. So taking on board the recommendations of that working party that is still a bit to be decided.
Just sorry, really quickly. This is a Part B, so it's going to full council. So will there be something more concrete possibly in that recommendation? If it is, so that we know what it is.
So you can a bit more detail into that recommendation is not a problem in terms of we can put some in forwards in terms of how we would perhaps propose that group be structured, or where that group would come from. So yeah, we can certainly add a bit more to that if we're allowed to do that to recommendations.
I don't know.
Yes.
I think depending on what the decision the recommendation from this, then we should be able to answer a little more detail
Okay,
based
no
on
problem.
that. Councillor Burr, you coming back again?
But the devil's always in the detail, Chair. So I think Councillor Andrews had a valid point there, and I'm pretty laid back about it being from the Grants Working Party, blah blah blah. I think that's sound. But what I would like is the Vice Chair of P&R to be on that. I personally want this to run quickly, whichever way we as council decide to go, and just, I mean, you know, Chair, you have got a lot on, and I would hate that it couldn't move forward because you weren't there. So that would be only my recommendation, that to allow this to move forward. But that's the devil's in the detail, and maybe that could come to full council. But obviously we'll get back onto the main thing that we're talking about.
Well, I would be happy with that, but as Amy said, we need to get into that discussion around a working party and whether it is what the membership of that will be. So thank you, Amy. Is that all questions that members have? Do we want to throw this open to debate? Do we think we've given it sufficient airing as part of questions? There's a mixture of questions and debate. Councillor Burr?
Well, no, Chair, I don't think we have debated it. I think we've just
Okay,
asked-
that's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to hear what other councillors are thinking about this. As I say, no one can say that I act consistent, because I said that I wanted this money spent and I wanted it spent. And what's thrown this open to us is that we all thought that it was only for infrastructure, and it was set, you know, in steel, and that's what we had to do. Quite right. And so obviously, you know, Norton School has now got this money. It's opened a can of worms, which we've got to deal with, whether we like it or not. We've given that to Norton College, and other colleges, Pickering, you know, Malton, wherever, Kirby, Rydale, are all thinking, well, you know, the precedent has now been set. So as a council, we have to decide what we're going to do. So, you know, my views, I want it done as quickly as possible. I want everybody to have a share. I like everything that's on that table. I think it would be probably impossible to deliver it all, but it's people who obviously give us something quite fast, something that is probably half ready to go, that we would be looking at, that we could deliver, because the word vesting day has been, you know, spoken about tonight. This is like a train coming down the track, and I tell you what, we'll be closed down before you know it, and we'll have done nothing. So we just need to get on with it, and get on with it quick. And I think it's really important that this group round the table decide, or have a unanimous decision of which track they'd like to go down.
That's absolutely fine.
I would like to discuss it.
Yeah, I wasn't wanting to stymie debate. I'm more than happy for that to happen. I mean, I don't see it as a can of worms that's been opened up. I think it's a great opportunity
Oh, it
for this
is.
council. So yeah, Councillor Arnold.
I think it's very simple what we've all said. Option 2, and that's it. I don't want to say any more. I've said my bit.
Okay.
Option 2.
I'll second that.
Yeah, well, we have the recommendation, so yeah, well, that's fine. That's the proposal. Councillor Andrews. Well, it would change. Elizabeth, are you still there? Elizabeth?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Thank you. Nick's just asking, dependent on, obviously, we haven't actually made a decision on which option we're going to go for, but the question has been asked whether more information could be provided for members at full council on this, because that's where it'll go next. Do we need to make an amendment to that effect, or could we just ask for a little further information for full council?
for completeness sake, it would be preferable if you could just vote on an amendment that further information is required, which we put towards full council. In that way, you know, we can then just put it forward, and it just is the best way to do it. It's transparent. It's then proof that you've made a decision, you've considered this, and you require more information.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So who was it that was asking for further information? Was it you, Councillor Burr? Yeah, okay, so yes. So if you'd like to make a proposal and get that seconded, and then we can vote on that first.
Right.
Sorry, Joy.
So small 4, with focused grants working party, with more information to how this would be delivered to come to full council. Does that work?
That's fine.
Okay.
Is that seconded?
Councillor Burr is going to second it.
Mhm.
So we'll take that to the vote. If members are happy with that, unless they want to discuss that proposal. This is a vote on the amendment. Could members please show for clarity for the officers? Thank you. Councillor Graham, I think we're just doing it by show of hands. So it's okay. Just seems simpler, really. So I think that's unanimous. Thank you, members. Okay, so we've got that in as an amendment to the recommendation that you have in front of you. Do other members want to debate any more of the recommendations before we take it to a vote? Yeah, by all means. Councillor Clark? No. Yeah, no, it's just for illustrative purposes, and because the Norton College discussion opened the floodgates, really. So there's a lot of expressions of interest that have come in, some with a lot of detail and some with a lot less detail on option 2. Right, okay, so I think we need to do this on the basis of taking item 1 first, because it's an either or. Sorry, I'm just looking for it now. Page 45. Yeah. We could do with these working. Yeah, okay, yes, okay then. So yeah, so if we do it using the buttons this time, and we use the plus for option 1. Well, sorry, yes, yeah. And abstain for option 2. Is that clear, members?
No, it's 4, 2, against 3, abstain 4.
No, because we're vote. Well, we could use. All right, we could use 3, which is against. If you're in favour of option 2, and if you want to abstain, you can use the abstain button. Does that? If members would prefer just to do it by show of hands, let's do it by show of hands. I think maybe we are complicating it.
Good idea.
Okay, right, let's do it. Let's just do it by a show of hands then. Okay, so we must get this right. So on the recommendations, 1, we're being asked to establish a preference for the allocation of the funding. So bullet point 1 is using the existing local development plan infrastructure list as a basis for eligibility, which is detailed in Appendix 1. So those in favour of that option, please show. Okay. So bullet point 2, through a new scheme with a broader eligibility framework that would cover a range of community infrastructure schemes, such as those identified in both Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. Those in favour of that option, please show. Thank you. And abstentions? Thank you. Did you get that? Yeah. Okay.
That's 2, 7 for and 2 abstentions.
Thank you. And then moving on to the rest of the recommendations. So to the amended 3, sorry, no, the amended 4. So 2, 3 and the amended 4. Can we take those on block, members? Happy with that? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay. Thank you, members, for that. I think that was a good discussion of a slightly challenging one. So thank you very much, Amy, for your contribution. Sorry, Councillor Graham.
Yeah, sorry, is that on? Yes. It's just I've had a note from Helmsley Town Council to say that will we publicly thank Amy Thomas for giving up her time to go and talk to the meeting and answer lots of public questions and how well worthwhile it was. So while she's here, I'm mentioning it. Do please, yes.
Thank you, Amy. I think that's probably in reference to particularly to something that's coming up slightly further down the agenda, but yes, no, I add my thanks to that as well. Thank you. Okay, moving on to next item is to receive committee level decisions made under urgency powers as required under the Constitution. So item 14 was the suspension of overnight motorhome and campervan parking in the Cleveland Way car park, which is on pages 55 and 64. I think if members have read the paperwork on that, they will understand why this decision has been made. There have been various comments have come through, including one very late in the day today from a local business person about their concerns on the impact on businesses in Helmsley of this decision. But I think it's quite clear in the paperwork that it is a temporary provision while we look at alternatives, while we look at how some of the issues that have been raised by the complainants can be dealt with. So I trust that members will be content with the fact that that was signed under urgency powers. Amy, do you want to add anything? I don't want to drill you in unnecessarily, but I just want to make sure, because obviously you dealt with this, and I think that was the matter that Councillor Graham was referring to from Helmsley Council.
Yes, on the spot, thank you. Yes, I think we obviously went through the urgency powers process to deal with some of those issues that we'd had reported to us at the Cleveland Way car park. I appreciate it's probably a minority that caused the issues that we've got there, but I just want to perhaps say that what's an important thing to say is that yes, we'd had some complaints about things that had happened in the car park, but I think a big area of consideration for us was actually the risk to some car park users as a result maybe of some of that behaviour and the liabilities that perhaps then brought onto the council. I think in particular, I think it's fair to say that the risk of fire, you know, if, for example, if there were too many motorhomes that were parked too close together, you know, imagine, you know, somebody had a barbecue, a spark went, somebody was sleeping in the next camper van. I don't even want to think about what might happen. So I think it was the risk and the liabilities side of things, as well as some of the complaints we've had. But I think it was an all-round picture, I think, that prompted that decision. And you're quite right, you know, we're going to look at, you know, to see if there's a workable, viable solution for the longer term. But at the moment, it was just felt to be that it was not a manageable, safe position.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Thank you very much, Amy. Sorry to put you on.
That's all right. Thank you.
You wanted to mention it. So if that is just really for information, for members' information, that decision has already been made. Item 13 is another urgency matter. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Frank. Apologies.
Can I just ask about that? Because the barriers and the barriers that have been commissioned and things, must have cost a lot of money, and I just think that that money's been spent before a sound decision's been made on this. If it's under review and they're going to decide whether or not they can make it workable, which I don't see why they can't. Scarborough Council have got 2 car parks working perfectly well, and they're managing it well, and it's working really well for them. And the council down in Devon have a really good scheme of like this. Now, if that decision hasn't been made, why are we spending all that money on barriers? And the second point, which I think you will need to look into before you erect the height barrier. There's two delivery people, Wellops Catering Supplies and Brake Brothers can't get up to the walled garden, and the cake lady Rhiannon's cake place, they can't get up to there through the little alley that goes up to the walled garden. So if you put those height barriers on, that's going to cause more problems than it's going to solve for those delivery people, because they use the back car park to deliver from. You know, I just think there's better solutions than these barriers and stopping it. I think, you know, it ought to be managed properly and carried on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. I know that you had concerns when this was when group leaders were consulted on the subject. I think basically the decision had to be made in the way it was because of the risks to car park users. There were significant risks, and I think they continue to be with the extent of the use that it was having, and some of the activities that were taking place were definitely dangerous and hazardous to other car park users and camper van motorhome users. So we have a duty of care to car park users, and we have a duty of care to non-car park users, but just people in that vicinity. So I think that decision had to be made. Thank you for the mention of the vans, that the delivery vans. I think that was something that I wasn't aware of, but obviously I've passed that information on to Amy, and this will be part of the process of looking at it. The discussions around what might happen in the future are all part of the entire car park strategy that the council is taking forward at the moment. Actually was in a local car park not too far away from here recently and met some officers who were undergoing that work the other day. So it will be part of that process, but I think on the health and safety grounds it had to be done that way because it was a danger.
I think it's a shame it's thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I think that it would be nice to roll it out over all the car parks in Rydale and bring some more business into the towns. A lot of businesses, and particularly the small businesses, small shops and what have you, are struggling and have struggled with the pandemic and everything else. And I really think that this is not the right way to go. You know, I hope it is being reviewed, and I hope people can find better solutions than closing it down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for those comments, Councillor Frank. So we're looking at it as part of the bigger picture, really, across all our car parks. So thank you. So moving on, item 15. Again, you have the papers in front of you, pages 65 to 82, with reference to the additional relief funding for COVID for our local businesses. That again had to be made as an urgency decision because it was time sensitive in order to distribute that money to our local businesses that weren't eligible for the other scheme that the government introduced during the pandemic. So just to note, 307 businesses in Rydal have benefited from this increase in CARF relief, as it's called. So I think that's a good thing. It's a benefit to those businesses who couldn't benefit from the other funding scheme, support scheme. So that had to be taken in that way. So that's just for information. Okay. So moving on again, exempt. We have an exempt item next. So I'd like to move exempt from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please, for that? Thank you, Councillor Frank. All those in favour of exempt, please show. Thank you. Okay. So this is item 17,